Welcome to Get Big Out Loud Radio, where we explore living the complex, funny, and beautiful ride of life with me, Kari Knutson, and Dr. Pat on transformationtalkradio.com. Are your thoughts keeping you small? Are you ready to get big? I will offer you ideas to transform what you are thinking into conscious action. Explore what is keeping you small and how to shift your behaviors in order to get big. Learn what is possible for you. Get ready to get big and live life out loud starting now.
Hey, everybody, I'm Dr. Pat. I get to take this complex, funny, and beautiful ride of life. And boy, did we get a dose of it over the past couple of weeks. But I always love when, there's a metaphor that, Kari, you're using today, fighting the ocean. Now, anybody that's ever been like in an ocean and kind of been like against it in the ocean, there are a couple of things you've learned. Like, for example, what does this mean? It's a metaphor, but let's talk about that. Here I am in Hawaii, and I love the water and I cannot swim. So I am always in the water on like a floaty or something, right? So here I am on a beach in Hawaii and I'm just floating. And the next thing I know, I cannot see the shore. I'm like, oh, please help me, right? Nobody can help me. I don't think anybody can see me. And so what I was told, and this is what you're talking about today. So my instinct was, hurry, it's like, like going against and I'm going nowhere. But I'm just like swimming, and I'm kicking, and I'm exhausted, and I'm going nowhere. And then I remember my friend who lives in Hawaii saying to me, no, Pat, follow the tide that's coming in. It may take you 2 miles down the shore, but you will get to land. Now, today, fighting the ocean is a bigger metaphor than that. We're doing a lot of that. And my friend, I did a talk once called The Slide and Glide of Life. I hope you can help us with this topic, fighting the ocean. What the heck has come up for you to pick this topic, Kari?
Well, I always pick in every episode something that is relevant to me in my life, what's going on right now. And the interesting thing how this came up is I was talking to a client, a coaching client, and just talking about the sheer overwhelm of it was personal, it was professional, it was dreams, it was hopes, it was trying to live up to standards. It was all this stuff that I was unpacking with her essentially. And then I was reflecting in my own life the similar kinds of things that I had been like beating myself up around about not getting things done right or on time or letting things slide or my comparison. And I was like, it was so interesting that I was helping her unpack that. And the word that I kept that coming to mind is like, what you're doing, like why you're so exhausted is because it's the same as fighting the ocean. And I had that image because I had a kind of a similar experience. Well, I get just an experience in the ocean, not floating away, but I'm from Colorado and I had not been raised near an ocean or knew about oceans. If I maybe like put my feet in an ocean like in my teens, like not really sure. So my first time like really swimming in the ocean was with my husband on our honeymoon in Mexico, and we were swimming and a big wave was coming, and he said I started to panic and go back this way, and he goes, dive, kick, swim. And I didn't understand how it worked. Like you would dive under the wave. So the wave pummeled me. So he goes swim, and I'm like, what are you talking about? So he knows what he's doing. So he goes and he swims and he goes, of course, under the wave and pops out the other side. I, in fact, get pummeled by the wave, get turned upside down. The lifeguards are like, are you okay? I don't know where I am. I have sand everywhere. And I'm so mad because the ocean just beat me up, right? I didn't know what to do. And it was antithetical to like do what he said, dive under, right? And so when I was talking to this coaching client of mine, I was like, it's like that feeling of just being pummeled. Like I tried to fight and you can't win. And it was the feeling for me of like the shock of the power of the ocean. It was the shock of like how if you're not paying attention constantly, like you have to flow with it. and you have to know the signs, and how this is in life sometimes. Like, we have to go with the ocean and not fight against it. Imagine standing at the edge of the ocean, like, I'm going to beat you. And I feel like the ocean is a metaphor for all the things life is going to throw at us, the things that are unpredictable, the things we can't control, the things that are simply bigger than us. Like, when you think how small you are compared to the ocean, you know that it's impossible. But we do this with our lives. We stand at the edge of our lives and be like, I'm going to fight all the things. I'm going to control the uncontrollable. I'm going to challenge the unchallengeable. I'm going to manage the unmanageable. And we show up every day. And a lot of us are really trying to be in that fight. And then we wonder, why am I exhausted? Why am I burned out? Where is my feeling of joy in life? Why am I measuring my value by my to-do list and how many things I've checked off? When was the last time I just felt free to be me? Like, it's the whole thing, right? So that's why I love
Enchilada.
meditation.
It's the whole conglomeration of the deal.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I
Wow.
wanted to talk about it, because I know if I'm feeling it, other people are too. And the fact that using that metaphor with the client that I was coaching was so helpful to both of us to think about this idea of, what can you control, what can't you control, and why, and also affirming her exhaustion, like her level of not just physical exhaustion, because fighting the ocean is also a level of psychological,
Oh,
emotional exhaustion, and like,
oh,
and I think sometimes it's compounded by the physical, and then you don't know what's happening. Am I physically exhausted, so it's making it harder to manage my emotions? Am I emotionally exhausted, so it's making it physically hard to show up? I think it's the same. I think it's not worth weighing what happened, that they're intertwined in a way that I think we have to, as a society. And what I want to unpack today is, why do we feel like we should fight the ocean? Why do we feel
yeah.
like, try harder, do more faster, just keep going, instead of the idea of like, okay, I want to offer some other strategies today for thinking about our relationship with the uncontrollable.
And I think what we're talking about is, despite everything we do, what you're saying, no matter what we try, things do slip through the cracks. And we're not just dealing with these things ourselves, but we're carrying the burden, we're shouldering the emotions, the toll of burnout. But even more than that, when you're in that state, everything is up for being triggered, right? You're in that state and somebody decides they're cooking you the egg, but they broke your yolk, and you have a complete meltdown, which has nothing to do with the egg.
Even it's really good to say that, though, because sometimes what helps us kind of tap into self-awareness is when something is going on in our lives, and when we get triggered by something totally unrelated, it's usually because we cannot respond to the actual thing, right? So let's say here's a really good example from my own life. I stubbed my toe really hard one day, while walking down a street. There was this the piece of concrete had lifted up, and I hit it so hard that I scraped my toe and it was bleeding, and then I really hurt it, and I stubbed it hard, right? And
Yeah.
this is so unfair that I'm just trying to get rid of this concrete thing is up, and just stubbed it really hard, and it was hurting, and no one even cares that it's hurting. And it was so funny how dramatic I was being to myself about my stubbed toe. And what I really thought about later is like, I don't feel like I'm being paid attention to in other parts of my life. And this stubbed toe represents the fact that nobody cares about what's going on with me. And then I thought, really, Kari, have you shared what's going on with you? Have you asked for some support? Like, but the stubbed toe, like, it was like starting to ruin my whole day. And the fact like this shouldn't happen to me
Yeah.
because I'm a good person. And I kept thinking about, in our heads, it's good to key into that, because sometimes what I do is I have to laugh at myself after the fact, because I'm fairly dramatic, and I can see where my mind just goes on, like that could be on a show of some sort, being very dramatic. And I have to notice that about myself, and then reflect and be like, wow, that was really dramatic. What was going on for you there, Kari? Like, what would just happen in that moment? And the same can be said, a lot of people will do this. They're driving and someone cuts them off and they get so angry, like even more than they normally would, because they can't be angry at these things going on in their life, but there's a purposeful, good reason to be very rageful, that person who
Yeah.
cuts you. So making those connections is one of the first steps to like, where am I putting
Yeah.
my stress and stuff, and how can I be aware what might be popping up? And what I call is like, it's just below the surface. All it takes is a little scratch sometimes for it to like come up.
I love that we're talking about this because, here you are just walking down the street and boom, right? You get it. And I don't know if there was somebody, you're walking a dog. I don't know what you're
No,
doing.
I was just walking to a
You're just
gig
walking.
and I
So
had
you,
sandals on and I was in
oh
a
my
different part of
God.
the town. So I had these sandals on. I was all in my outfit trying to look cute and like my nice dress up sandals, right? Trying to look good, trying to go to this, be a professional. And then I just hit that concrete, step like there's blood. Then I got to clean it up before the gig and I have a step to it. They asked for a Band-Aid. Right? And then I was just mad. I was mad because it felt unfair. And I thought, wow, this feeling of what's unfair because I'm so nice and
Yeah.
nobody cares. See the narrative there?
I see the narrative, but it's so interesting because we got a dose of perspective here in the past 2 weeks. We really did. And especially me. And I've learned a lot from it, and I'm going to make I'm going to make adjustments to the team. But part of what happened for me is I live in, they don't call me Pollyanna Patty for nothing, right? And part of that is I don't see it coming. Like I don't see the cement deal you're going to step on. I don't even see it if it's a cement wall, right? That's why we have Linda, right? Jessica and I have Linda because Linda will say, slow down. There's a big fat wall there. But sometimes things happen that are out of your control. This is one of your bullet points that I want to talk about. The futile effort to control the uncontrollable.
Mm-hmm.
This is the key. Now, when you're in business and you're a business person, and you are too, Kari. So there are things you and I cannot talk about today about our business and about what our clients. That's not anything we would do anyway. It's very important in this arena. We also have our producers sign NDAs to protect all of you, right? To make sure that we're holding the absolute regard for who you are, because you all share a ton of personal information with us, right? So we've done that. But then there are things that come up you have no control over. And I'm going to tell you, I didn't stub my toe, but I will tell you, I hit the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that we've done was so positive centric. I can't even tell you. And the most joyous thing that happened in the past 2 weeks for me, despite the wall, was our trademark got approved as a registered trademark.
Congratulations.
Well, I let it go. It was not controllable. I let it go. We had been asked to file 72 specimens because we filed every class. Because in 22 years, we actually have done all that work, Kari. But when we put them together, the realization of what has been done here in 22 years made me so very honored. But juxtapose that, John DeMartini always said, there's always a contrast, Pat. Juxtapose that, we also won another battle. We were able to get out of neglected office space. We were able to have our producers work from home. We were very generous in doing that with equipment we gave them, literally helped them set up. We did all that. And yet, despite all that, I forgot I had to change my address for my business.
Oh, see, this is so perfect. That's so perfect, right? Almost thinking that what falls through the cracks, and then you're like, wait, I'm competent. Wait, I've been doing this, right? And this is again the amount of overwhelm that the smallest things fall through the cracks that you're like, oh my God, how did that happen?
Oh,
That's like that, but that's a measuring stick, I feel like, of knowing when we're in overwhelm, like knowing
yeah.
because some of us live our lives at pretty high level of overwhelm, and then you just tip the needle a little bit more, like, and then you're like, and now I'm really in overwhelm. And that's such a great example. I forgot to change my address. For me, I'm like, I forgot to sign my a form for my daughter's going on a trip to Italy with her class. All the forms are due on some day. I just missed one of the forms, happens to be the most
Yeah.
important form, they have to get notarized, right? But I was like, I had all my paperwork guys so far. They're like,
Oh
you
my
need
gosh,
to
right?
beside myself in that because she can't control that. I have to do that for her, right? And so like those things that you're like, wait a minute, that's part of like, normally what you would do. It's the same thing, Dr. Pat. We
But you
like,
know what it is it seemed like a small thing. However, now you have people working from home. Now you have to figure out how to pay them. And so here I am moving right along, nonchalantly telling my bank, and I'm an S corporation and nothing about corporate filings are nonchalant. So let's just be very clear about that. If you're a sole proprietor in LLC, you can be kind of casual, but when you're an S corporation, the rules are different. And so I had no idea. This is one of these things where what do you call it here? Energy drains, emotional. I had no idea that my bank and Zelle have now put new requirements in. And
well,
so I had to jump through hoops just to figure out how to pay people. And I'm not going to go into the details, but we did the best we could in the time we had and got it all straightened out eventually. But even today, there's still one or two issues with it. But here's the thing, they don't get me exhausted anymore because I know the move we're making, the positive side of the move we're making, everything about what we're doing is exactly for the next level. But now something else happened. And I want to ask you about this because I want to talk about this idea of shifting, right? What does it mean to release the need for control?
well, and the idea of even understanding how much we try to control things, and I call this part like the thin veil that gets lifted when we realize how much is out of our control, but we act as if in most of our day-to-day lives, we perceive that we have more control than we do. And we try to exert that control with our to-do list and our priorities and the way we manage things. And then as we get emotionally overwhelmed or we realize some things are truly out of our control, like some things when we just have to wait or figure it out, or like you said, respond and do the best we can. So the idea of the fight of emotional overwhelm is when you continue to do it. Like, I'm going to try to control the uncontrollable. I'm going to try to control so many things. The idea is instead of pushing harder, to take a step back and think about this. What are the things I can actually control? Like, and sometimes the things you actually control are, what food will I put in my mouth today? What social media will I follow? How much time will I spend inside or outside? I don't, like, it's the smallest thing. Who will I call if I need support? Like, when you really think, what do I have control over? And then you juxtapose this about your priorities. And most of us, if I say, okay, what are your priorities? We'd say my family, my health, my finances. And then what your show, but let me look at your life for a minute. And then what do you prioritize? Work, 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 or like money, 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 or getting things, whatever it is. And then you juxtapose this and be, okay, so what you can control and what matters to you, your actual priorities, not society's priorities or not what you're doing with your schedule or your time, but your actual priorities. So what you can control in your priorities. And then at the intersection of those two circles, that is your guide to what you should actually focus on. And that sometimes is hard because it's so antithetical to our, if you put those two things together, what I can control, what my priorities are, what I should focus on. Sometimes if you look at that and then your to-do list, they don't match up at all. And then again, that leaves us feeling this kind of despair around, what's this all for? What am I doing this for? No one's going to give me a prize at the end of the day. But what I'm really doing is this. And I think this is the human condition. I'm wrapping up my worthiness in my work. I'm confusing my work and my worth. And I'm confusing the idea of, if I do these things on my task list, or if I achieve these things that society says I should, that's, again, not really stated, but very palpable. Do these things by this age at this time and be successful. So when we do all these things and we're trying to say like, oh my gosh, I'm trying to be successful and do the things I'm supposed to do. So I'm like, I better work really hard because then I'll have worth. And then I better do all the things I'm supposed to do because then I will be quote unquote successful. And we're driven for that. And that's why sometimes at the end of the day, you get what you think you wanted, and it's not what you wanted at all because it didn't match with your true priorities.
Yeah.
you never took a moment to step back and think, what am I doing this for? What does
Yeah.
it mean to me? And that's the opportunity here when you know you're fighting the ocean, is to actually step back from the fight to get perspective.
Yeah. I mean, Mary Louise Smith said to me, and from now on, I think I'm going to implement this for the whole team, because this is a question I had to ask myself. You have these really great things happening on one end of the spectrum, right? Just incredible things. We're setting up our launch, but we needed the trademark to be registered. I mean, do you imagine launching under the Transformation Network without a registered trademark? Do you understand what happens with that? Right? But I believe in the God of my understanding is really benevolent and checks off all the boxes.
Mhm.
But sometimes we think we're in the right place and wrong time. For example, your toe stub. Just an example. I want to use it for a minute because it's so cool. I mean, Linda and I am so clumsy. Oh, I'm not when I'm playing, but outside of that, I can trip on a stone, right? Why? I don't know. But think about it. There you were thinking I'm going to give you another scenario. There you were thinking you're all by yourself. You're walking down with your little fancy toes showing and you got your fancy shoes on and you're walking down and you hit this thing, right? And the next thing you do, you are like, maybe a couple of cuss words. And the person running the event hears you. Now that's a situation. And so the reason I'm bringing it up is because each of us has the ability to check in with our emotions and manage our reaction and behavior to it. Right. And I want to talk about that because it's part of it, to begin to shift. Right. Let's talk about this in some examples of this. We have to figure out what's in my control and what isn't. The serenity prayer. Are you familiar with the serenity prayer? I said it 5 times this morning in an exchange with one of my staff members. I said it like
Well, and
5
say the
times.
first lines of it, because the first lines are so beautiful.
Yeah. Shall we share it with people?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. God grant me the
God,
serenity to
God
accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the
knows the difference.
difference.
And I love the wisdom piece because
Man.
that's the crux of the whole prayer, like the wisdom to know the difference. And we can't tap into our wise minds when we're so emotionally, physically, mentally stressed. And that's part of the idea of like waking up to what's actually happening versus like the continual pressure to go, go, go and not reflect. And the funny story about this stupid story about stubbing my toe is like the moment of hitting the thing causes you to wake up, right? And to be like, well, why was I so upset in that moment? It was all the other things. And this was such a good excuse to be upset, right? About like, this isn't fair. Oh my God, I'm so embarrassed now. And like my toe's bleeding. And how could this happen? And I'm a speaker. And now I got to come with a bloody toe and our ideas of ourselves, right? And then we do this whole conflated thing. And then the wisdom to know the difference is like to be able to laugh at yourself and be like, okay, you literally just stubbed your toe. It does not mean that everything's against you. It's not a symbol of your failure. Like, but see that whole emotional regulation
Yeah.
around. And I have to tell you, what was so nice is walking into the building with the bloody toe. The person checking me in at the front desk was like, I'm like, I do you have a first aid kit or anything like that? And do you know that person was so nice to me,
Yes.
and it gave
Yes.
me an opportunity to ask for help, and they were so generous. They'll
Yes.
come back around the desk. Let's get you cleaned up before you go in. I won't tell them you're here yet. Let's
Oh,
get you cleaned up, is what she said. And I'm like, I do need to get cleaned up. I do need some antiseptic on the thing. And it just felt like a little bit of care. And then I thought about that caring for me, just stopping what you're doing to care for yourself. Like, I need to I cannot go in there with a bloody toe. I have
yeah.
to clean myself up. I need to take a minute. And in life, sometimes you think I'm going, going, going. And if something like things are falling apart, sometimes again, we don't step back to be like, I need to take care of myself so I can show up. And sometimes taking care of yourself in that way is like, maybe I need to put a boundary on what I say I'm going to do so I have some more time for myself. Maybe that looks like reflecting for a moment on what my priority is in this moment. And like, I can't do everything, but I could do something. So versus like what I think I should do versus what I need to do. And then paring down the to do list into the essential things. And also maybe I think this is the most important one that we often overlook, is giving yourself a break from the perfectionism kind of mindset around I have to be all the things to all the people all the time. That's not true. But we live that in our mind. So sometimes taking a step back is like,
that was a mistake I made. That's the number one mistake I made these past couple of weeks. Because the situation we ran into, as a matter of fact, I'm still straightening out with my bank. I had somebody's Zelle payment kicked back today. I have an appointment at the bank at 3:00 today. So I'm still working that issue, but it's going to be resolved. And the bank person I'm talking with was like the person with your toe. We walk into the bank. I'm trying not to cry. Linda's with me. The woman sees me like, what is wrong with her? And Sharika, her name, and she was so kind. She was like, "Can I help you?" And I said something like, "I don't know where to start. I got 3 issues. 1, my nonprofit, and 2, I've got to find a way other than what I'm doing to pay people because it's not working." And she sat us down and she went through it. And the first thing she said was, "Well, you can pay through Zelle, but they have to have businesses." I said, "Of course they do." And kindly, and we're going to take a break, kindly, she said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "I don't know." She said, "Good, we can start there. Let's take a break." Why is "I don't know" the best answer? What did I learn in the past 2 weeks? When did I decide that I'm trying to fight the ocean and, oh, what's the problem? I'm not in Waikiki on that beautiful calm water. I'm on the North Shore, unattended, in Hawaii, the North Shore. Hello. I need to have myself checked in for that one. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we're going to give you some real examples. For example, the perpetual to-do list. How hard is it for you to not work on a Saturday as an entrepreneur? I'm just asking. You don't have to find, don't write us. You can call us, but 1-800-930-2819. How hard is it for you to pick a play day or a half a day? You're an entrepreneur. You're running a business. Will you give yourself that gift, even amongst the sky you think is falling, which really isn't? Let's take a short break. Kari Knutson, when we come back, she's going to take us through what to do. How do we make different choices? How do we treat moments that we're in as moments? And how do we not look back? Let's take a short break. Most amazing Kari Knutson, who I got to talk about speaking with on a separate call. But she is an amazing speaker. I mean, this is just a taste. Go to knutsonspeaks.com. Lots of information. She is a coach. For those of you out there that are thinking, I want to do that. I want to be, I do want to be Kari when I grow up. How do you do that? Kari, what's the best way for people to get you?
Just reach out to me on knutsonspeaks.com, and you can find all my information on the website about coaching and presentations and my show and the best way to contact me. And I love it when people reach out because to me, it's that connection through time and space to people having the same experience as I am, and just connecting with other people in a really thoughtful, positive way through the work that I do. That's what I try to do.
Yeah. And I want to say something. Kari's work that she does to prep for the shows, I mean, we don't show up and wing it. We're organized. She's organized. She knows what she wants to speak about. And every time I work and mentor with a new host, I show them one of Kari Knutson's episode descriptions. And they say, wow, I want to be her when I grow up too. Let's take a short break, everybody. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody, welcome back. You are listening to the most incredible show. As I said to you before, this is Get Big Out Loud with Kari Knutson. I'm Dr. Pat. I get to take this complex, funny, and beautiful ride of life with her. each time we do an episode, today we're talking about fighting the ocean. And, sometimes you don't expect this, Kari. You don't expect that you have these things happen that are really good, that are getting you in the right direction. And then, as we talked about, there are things that happen that you're like, what? Right. And I had one of those this morning. I was like, what is this about? And yet, I turned it over. So give out your website, how people can contact you. And we're going to talk about how do you navigate this ocean? What do you learn? When do you fight? When do you flight? When do you do nothing? How's the best way to get a hold of you, Kari?
You can hang out with me at knutsonspeaks.com, and that's the best way to find information, or on social media at Knutson Speaks.
Yeah.
And when you were talking to Dr. Pratt, it makes me think so much about how like we all are acting as if like whatever role we're in, like we're in the entrepreneurship space, right? I've been in the being a therapist space. There's other roles that we've had, and then people listening to this are doing all sorts of things. But our ideas around like what is success, what is control, what are we responsible for? Like no matter what job you have, I think the human condition is to think about like what makes me a success. And then how do most of us too have an overinflated sense of what we can or can't control, and then that idea of what am I responsible for? And even for I think about, am I responsible for like knowing about bookkeeping and taxes and speaking and psychology and website development and accounting and invoicing and all the things? And so some of it too is like managing those three things about like what is my idea of success, what are the things I can and can't control, and what are my responsibilities. I think that frames the whole conversation about what it means to fight the ocean. And like for any person at any job, for people listening, it doesn't matter. The job itself isn't the thing. It's what we make the meaning from of the thing. Like if we have status because of it, or if it drives us in certain ways or whatever, the thing is just the thing. We infuse it with meaning. We infuse it with what that's an event happens. Let's say we are the people that decides if it's successful or not based on our judgments. We decide how responsible we have to be for something. And so again, it's our human engagement with what I say is a kind of a neutral object that makes it more than it is.
Yeah. And this is, you see, for me, when I look back on the past two, actually, it's been more like a month since we started the process to move out of the space and provide a way for people to work from home. That was no easy feat. I think my staff thinks sometimes that, oh, yeah, we just work from home, right? But the logistics in doing that, and thank you for Jessica. I just want to give a shout out to Jessica and Linda, because Linda's role now in managing tasks and how to do that, she's taken that on. Jessica's role in setting up technology that now enables not only for people to be able to work from home, but answer phones, like our office phone number, right? I mean, these are the kinds of things it takes a village, but it's hard sometimes because the unexpected comes up and you've got to protect your peace in it. And that's the most important thing I've learned. Despite what looks like going on, I tried to stay calm. I tried to stay cool. And that was the only way you bring things to success. But let's talk about that, because I mentioned earlier, when was the last time anybody had a play date? Hello, play, P like LAY. Like, are you on your computer on your first cup of coffee in the day? Did you stop to look that you got a raven buddy outside hanging out with you? Or if you're Linda, you got rabbits scratching on the door trying to get in to make all huggy with Linda because she loves rabbits. Where are you in the whole scheme of this thing here, Kari?
Well, I think the idea of like taking the time, even naming like fighting the ocean, like I said, just a simple conversation with a coaching client and a reframe for her allowed a reframe for me, because again we're all people doing jobs, or at the end of the day we're people. And so the idea of a reframe can sometimes just be like, oh man, oh, look at the ways I am trying to fight the ocean, or look at me trying to do the best I can with what I have, and getting some perspective on, do I have to do all the things perfectly all the time? What's my idea of perfection? So again, that just even a little bit of reflection and what I call around that self-awareness. To me, that's when you engage in your conscious mind. Most of us are going on unconsciously thinking thoughts, doing things the way we do it, and not even questioning them. And so the opening here is, can I just engage my conscious mind to see things a little differently, to talk to myself a little differently, to manage, like I often say, like, what if you talk to yourself like someone you love deeply, right? And says, like, well, if someone saw me doing the things I was doing, they'd be like, hey, you're working really hard. You're doing this. You're not supposed to be perfect at everything, right? If somebody outside would tell me that, but yet here I am up like telling myself, I'm holding myself to these impossibly high standards, and then feeling like I'm failing, then feeling emotional about it. And it's hard. And the two main areas I find myself doing this, like in my own life, that it is the trigger for me is being a mom on one side, triggers the ocean, and then being a professional speaker triggers the fight with the ocean. Because again, and my self-awareness has been so much better. Like, oh, I fight the ocean, particularly in these two ways, because I care so much. The stakes are high and I want to do a good job. So it's not for nothing that I'm like, I'm not just making up. Like, I really, normally when we fight the oceans, because we care, we really deeply, deeply care about the thing we're doing, what we're working on, or wanting to show up. Again, it's hard because we want to prove our worthiness, and we have to go back to, I'm worthy just because I'm here. But the idea of like proving it's a force. So again, when you think about this in your own life, it doesn't have to be about your job. It can just be about basically any time you show up to fight something. And like I said, for me, I notice when things show up for me, like if I'm in the mom world and I observe someone else, again, I don't know them, but I observe them. Oh, they're on time for things. Oh, they have time to volunteer. Oh, look what they brought to the potluck. That's actually homemade and looks delicious. Their kids have like matching clothes on and their hairs are brushed. Like, oh my God, like you know what I mean? When you start to compare yourself to others and you start to be like, I can't do the things she does. And instead of being like proud of another mom, or like, good job, you rocking it, or you know what, I bet this is what I'm saying, and I'm sure she has struggles too. Instead of saying any of those things, I fight the ocean about like, see, now I'm failing. See, now I'm not as good. See, here's what's wrong with me. And this whole idea of comparison is you just see what's wrong with you, not what's right. And then you can't appreciate the other person. And so
Yeah.
then you get all judgy. And it's the same with speaking. I really care about speaking. I want to do a really great job, but I'll see another speaker at a conference. I'll be like, they're really good. They seem to,
Oh, oh,
they have a book, or they
oh,
have a following, or they have a whatever. And then I start to think like, what, I'm not them, so I'm not successful. And again, this idea of success, or what I'm not versus what I am. And that's in anything, what I'm not versus what I am. And that's again fighting the ocean mentally. It's the mental gymnastics. And those kinds of things are always triggers for me where I have to clue in.
yeah.
I say specifically this to myself, I don't know how many times when this comes up, but there's a quote that says comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh, comparison is, I can't tell if it's one or two. Help me out here. I think number one is resentment is the number one offender.
Mhm.
But I think number two, comparison is what gets you to be resentful.
Oh yeah, totally.
Otherwise, why would you be resentful of anything if you're not comparing yourself to
Very
something?
right. And then and I like that idea because the quote is comparison is the thief of joy. I just change it to comparison is a thief, because
Yeah.
you're resentful. It's of your own experience, where you are in life, what you're doing, what you've achieved, what success means to you, and it keeps you from appreciating the other people that are doing amazing things. Like there's another ocean analogy. You cannot take all the water in the ocean for yourself. You just simply cannot. If someone's right next to you with a bucket and you had a bucket and you're like, okay, let's compete. And the whole idea is there's enough for all of us out there. The world, I want really good moms in the world, and I want really good speakers in the world. What am I competing for? Right? Like, I'm in my own space. You can't drain the ocean. And so that idea of comparison is just a thief. Sometimes I have to say that to myself to get back in my, what I call my right mind, from my crooked thinking, to realistic thinking. And like, wow. And then again, that self-awareness to be like, wow, notice what came up for you there. Like, whoa, that was like obviously a trigger. What's happening for you, instead of
Yeah.
what's wrong with you?
Well,
Right?
and then we have to also watch, and let's talk about this for those of you out there. There's a reason that we're highly I know for me, there's a reason that I'm encouraging all of you to take a break. And, this whole idea of fighting the ocean is a reminder. And for me, I have a great best friend. And Linda's one of these people that she will love you until she doesn't.
I hope
Right?
she's listening. Everyone, Linda and Dr. Pat have been best friends forever. And I get the pleasure of talking to both of them, but separately. And Dr. Pat is like loving and supportive in the way that, like, oh, let me talk through this. And Linda's like, where's your write up? What's wrong with you? Why do we have to talk about emotions again? Get this together. And she's like the opposite, and like the balancer out. And her loving ways are very different than your loving ways. But they're just as effective. And she's
They are, and they're needed.
Mhm. They
They're
are.
needed.
They are. And that's like, but how about we talk a little bit too? I was going to say about like the things that people might identify as like what
Let's do it.
like fighting the ocean for them. Does
That's
that?
right. Yeah, let's do it. Because the reason I bring up the comparison, Linda is my sanity check. For me, there's a reason they call me Pollyanna Patty. I trust impeccably. And, and sometimes that works out and sometimes it doesn't. But also, you have to learn to be introspective. Mary Louise Smith was brilliant. Walk in the room, puffing on a cigarette, big fat nails, sitting at her desk, sucking on coffee. Walk in the room. What part of the problem are you, Baccili? So let's talk about those things to help people understand. You don't have to ask that harsh question, although that did work for me. You can do something a little kinder, but let's talk about some questions to ponder.
Well, and I'd like what I wanted to do, even for the questions to think about, I wanted to think about when people know they're fighting the ocean, because sometimes it looks different for different people. And so I've given some examples, but I wanted to just kind of put this out there for people. Like if you have a perpetual to-do list that never gets done, and that you never actually take a break or a breather, or like are proud of what you did check off instead of looking at what you haven't checked off, that could be part of you sliding into fighting the ocean. Like I always have to do something all the time. And again, we conflate our to-do list with our worthiness. And there's a really cool quote I like to think around this: we are human beings, not human doings. So
Oh,
the minute I get
dang.
doing, again, these are just clues that you might be fighting the ocean, right? Like I got a perpetual do list I'm never going to get done, or the things I have checked off, I don't even see and appreciate those because I have so many more to do. So that's first thing. Also, if you are essentially running through your life on emotional overload but not sharing it, so like anytime you get a break, you're like, oh, you feel like you might want to cry, or you get emotional, or you look at yourself in the mirror and you like have those moments, but then outside you put on your smiley face, everything's good, everything's fine. Or when you're with people and they're, how are you? You're like, it's great, how are you? And like, it's like, well, I'm kind of overwhelmed right now, or I'm actually dealing with a lot. Like if you can never share the real part of you, I call that emotional overload, because I have to be happy and nice and perfect and look for the silver lining and it better be good. And so what we're doing is like there's such an extreme emotional overload of let's be okay, that sometimes if we're not okay, we can't even say I'm actually not okay today, or who
You
I
can't.
yeah, you can't. So that's again a slide into fighting the ocean. That's another avenue. Another way people really, I see this happen a lot, is in our perfectionist tendencies. I have to be perfect or I won't do the thing at all. Or there's another quote I like: perfect is the enemy of good. Can some things be good enough to get done? Good is done better than perfect and not, right? So the whole idea is, am I looking around my life like everything has to be done perfectly? Can some things be just good? And also, by the way, your good is someone else's perfect. So that whole idea, again, notice these are ways we slide into fighting the ocean. Another one is when you think about um the invisible things that we do in life, like they call this invisible labor. So like no one is going to say to me ever, great job today, Kari, you got your kids lunches packed, signed all the forms, got them off to school, went and did your gig, on the break called your tax person about what you need to talk to, got the forms filed, came and did the mail, made sure you had something for dinner tonight, and then made sure laundry was done for everyone, and like also the lawn got mowed. Right, like the invisible labor of like either managing it, having someone do it yourself, or holding all those things that no one's saying like, good job. But what if I did
No,
things? My family couldn't function. So the invisible labor cost where I can't, so you can see me doing a gig or producing a podcast, but you can't see me folding laundry, cleaning out the hall closet, sweeping under the bed, getting a new mop, going to get cat food because we all the things like forms for paying the bills late at night, invisible labor, but then I still want to be seen. And so sometimes acknowledging it, yeah, I'm working hard at my non-work activities. So that part is another thing. And then what I was going to say is the whole idea, the last thing is sometimes we resist getting help or letting go or just saying it's enough because we don't think it will get done the way we would do it. So
yeah,
like, and that's why some like people who say, well, I know I don't let other people do it because I have to do it perfectly. Notice that whole idea of like, or I'll just do it. It would take you too long, or I don't want to teach someone else, or they wouldn't do it as good as me. Again, notice that's a mindset. And I just what you can't let go of this, or this because it has to be done your way. Like notice that about your own mindset as a way of that slide into why you might be fighting the ocean. And I wanted to bring this up so people could get a clear sense of like how it shows up. You're not just one day like going along in your business and then all of a sudden like, oh, I'm fighting the ocean. Like it's been leading up to things. And you don't just like go through your life. And normally when you stub your toe, it might be a bummer, but it's not a reason to be like, oh my God, everything is wrong. No one cares about me. Right. So like, and you might not be as dramatic as me, but you're welcome for this little bit of drama. But again, notice, become conscious, notice those things to help you. Because when you get to that point, your greatest good is not to be stressed out and overwhelmed and burned out. That is not why you were here on this earth. And some of us act like it is, like it's a badge of honor. Who's ever the most stressed out wins. You actually don't get a prize. And that is the call back to ourselves. It's the call back to getting perspective. It's called back from the fight. It's the call back to what I can actually control. It's the call back to what is
yeah,
success. What
yeah.
is it? What does it mean for me? It's going, that's what I mean. The whole idea is instead of fighting it is to actually go back into yourself and reflect on all of those things.
You know, it's interesting because it's always, I always find that whatever we're talking about today, it's always about a growth opportunity. Susan Dene calls them growth spurts.
Mm.
And, you know, when I think about what you just said now, I am acutely aware of some of the lessons. You know, each of us has our Achilles heel. We have that soft spot that when it gets rubbed the wrong way, I don't care what it is, you react to it because you're not stopping and pausing for a minute. And, you know, I have a couple of them, and Linda teases me a little bit about it. And it's like this crazy thing about gossip and toxic conversations, especially at work. And for me, I learned a lesson in the workplace, 25 years in corporate America, and boy, you learn some lessons. But that's my issue. That's for me to handle. And you got to remember, what part of the problem are you? And part of the problem and the solution is to master your mind.
Yes, which is that's the only thing at the end of the day, that idea of can I master my mind? And I call that becoming conscious. And I feel like the goal is not to be like, oh, look at me, I've become conscious and I'm done. The goal is to invite that in, especially when things get hard. Invite some self-awareness, invite some conscious reflection. What's going on for me right now? When you notice you're comparing yourself to others, when you notice you're fighting the ocean, when you notice like you're not enough, and that feeling starts to be pervasive not only in work but of home and with friendships, like notice what you're the slide into that. And that is the invitation to become self-aware, but not with judgment or harshness or criticism. It's with deep love and respect for the person you are. Talk to yourself like you would to someone you deeply love and respect, and see what happens, and see if a little shift in perspective. Instead of like fighting the ocean, can you be like, okay, I'm either going to step back, I'm not going to fight it, or I'm going to do what I need to do on my honeymoon, which is I'm going to dive with the wave, I'm going to learn how to swim, or like you said in yours, I'm going to float down along the current. It may take me longer to get there, but I'm going to be safer along the way. There's lots of ways to engage with the ocean. Right? There's lots of ways to engage with our lives. There's not one right way, but there is a way for you. And that's what I hope we leave with,
Yeah.
the idea of you have
Yeah.
choices and opportunity.
You know, this morning you talked about saying thank you or appreciation. It comes in many forms. We don't always need it to survive, right? but sometimes you get unexpected. I had to dial 6 to 8 times to get the employment office in Washington State. And I finally did get them. I didn't have the right number, some strange, ridiculous number I never heard of. And I finally got someone and said, I know I'm supposed to send these forms back, but I just got to ask you a question. And then I asked her a question and 3 more questions. And you know what she said to me? She said, nobody calls us and asks the kind of questions you ask, how you can do this better in the future. And she said, I really commend you for that, but there's nothing you could do differently based on what you told me. Now, most of the time, you don't get that.
No. And this is so beautiful because, again, we're talking about being grateful for other people, how they show up, how they give us perspective, what we can say to ourselves in those moments. But that was someone reflecting back to you. You didn't mess it up that bad, or good question, or of course you have this question. And this is what I want to leave people with, because I oftentimes say this, which I think is affirming, like, you cannot fail at being yourself. You cannot fail. You haven't missed the boat. You haven't messed it up. You cannot fail. It's a Wayne Dyer quote that I love, especially in these moments where I feel like I'm messing up or nobody.
Yeah, me too.
And that little bit of kindness, right? The person who was just kind to you, you're like, I can't fail about being me. I might be learning a lot about being me, but I can't actually fail. And that to me is like that keeps you going for the next day when it feels hard. You cannot fail at being yourself. And don't let comparison be any kind of thief for you. And know when you're starting to fight that ocean. Know when you're sliding into the fight. And remember, you have options. You always have options.
Well, thank you so much. Now, listen, how do people find out about you? And thank you for leaving us way more educated, informed, and introspective than we did, at least for me. Thank you so much for this. How do we find out about you, please?
Thanks, Dr. Pat. You can find me at KnutsonSpeaks.com. And because some lovely person produces this show, it's on people's screens right now. KnutsonSpeaks.com. And that's where you can find about presenting, coaching, small groups and individuals, and one-woman show, all about our human connection and about the kinds of things I'm doing. And I want to thank you for the platform to share some of my ideas and other spaces that I normally wouldn't get to. So thank you, Dr. Pat.
Thank you so much, Kari.
Nation Network, so I'd have somewhere to do my podcast.
Exactly. And you're going to have a lot more fun in the very near future. It's coming. Thank you, Kari. Thank you all for tuning us in, turning us on. We'll see you next time.
You have been listening to Get Big Out Loud Radio, where we explore the complex, funny, and beautiful ride of life with me, Kari Knutson, joining Dr. Pat live every second Monday at 10 a.m. Pacific on TransformationTalkRadio.com. I will help you to know which thoughts are keeping you small in order for you to get big. Get big and live your life out loud. For more information, visit KnutsonSpeaks.com.